Hello and welcome to the channel. We're going to take another quick look here at Star Rulers 2. What we're going to do is just go over some of the basic tips for starting out in a vanilla game with no mods, of course. You don't need to worry too much about your portrait chipset or weapon skin. Those are all cosmetic, so is the name, of course. When you go to select your race, you have your default races, which we'll go ahead and accept that. Alright, so we have our default races, which we'll go back in here. And they all have their neat little storylines and presets for it. The starting fleets are going to be balanced out regardless of which one you select. Their starting resources, for the most part, will not matter, which will go back in the custom race and take a look at that. Your government determines your starting fleet and resources, your bonus basically, as it says there. The only one that really has an advantage here is the Empire because of the extra nearby asteroids, and those are basically permanent bonuses throughout the game. The actual starting cards vary from each different one, obviously, and that can really help you out if you're going down that route and if you get familiar with the card system, which is fairly effective. We've done a few games and we've been able to capture planets and entire solar systems with just diplomatic action through the cards rather than having to send military fleets. So you could, in theory, play and win the entire game based off of the diplomatic card system without needing any actual fleet. So the game is really good about having a variety of different playstyles built within it. Alright, so we're going to go with Empire by default. Now your FTL options, they weigh in pretty heavy, really. Obviously your hyperdrive is going to be just a cost for each jump for the ship. The fling beacons are fairly well effective, but they have a continuous cost as I recall. I believe the gates did as well. And Slipstream, of course, it's a rather huge cost to use as well. The mod we've been working on here basically forces everything to be sublight, and you can actually tech up into all of them, but that's not in the vanilla game, of course. But hopefully we'll get that mod updated to the point where we can release it for you. Now, of course, we're selecting, we're actually going to go with the random here, because it's going to give us a Patriotic Surge card by default, and it honestly, in the games I've played, it has not mattered what your hyperdrive option is, because for the most part, it's not going to be a big thing until later in the game. It's a late game feature you need to worry about. Now you've got all these different options for your lifestyle. Of course, you get no negative or positive effects from the terrestrial one. Another one I've been playing with is Evangelical. It's the missionary bonus is fairly interesting. It is helpful. The disadvantage to not having outpost is that anybody who rolls up into your system can instantly start capturing your planet rather than having to kill the outpost and any fleets first. Mechanoid is also fairly interesting. You can tech up your planets fairly quickly, but it gets costly for you to expand further and further out. And of course, when you lose population, you actually have to spend time building it all over again. So, what we're going to go with is Evangelical. This is what I've been using of late. Of course, you can always get the random bonus, which is definitely a good thing to have. So we're going to select that, and we're going to go with our two factions opposing us by default, or two other player factions, basically. No NPCs in this case. There is no limit on the number of factions you can have. You can just keep going with this, and the game will load up. Well, it will definitely warn you if you're adding way too much. Same with the galaxies. In the galaxies, you can actually add, let's see, we add one spiral galaxy with 20 planets at 5,000 spacing. We want to add another one. We'll actually flatten that as well. We'll add another one. We'll do a spiral galaxy, but let's say we want to add two of them this time. And these are also going to have 20 planets each. So here we can change the quantity of the galaxies of that exact type. And say we want to do 3,000 spacing, which that's actually really short spacing. I'd definitely say you could probably go for a 10,000 on average. That's a decent enough spacing for you to be able to react to what's going on in your fleets to have considerable time without being overly burdened going between system to system. Now, so we've got these added. We go over to game options. For the most part, everything is fine by default. I do like to turn on permanent aggression. I do like to disable starting fleets and allow surrender to break terms. Now, if you do use the mod engine to create a custom government, as we've been doing, you want to balance it in such a way that it is not going to have an advantage when there is or is not a fleet option. because you want to be able to toggle that fleet off right away. Obviously, if you're building a government and you want it to be balanced, you don't want to give it like 4 or 5 different starting fleets where it can just instantly go out and rush the other players and win that way. And you don't want to give it no starting fleets for sacrificing that for, say, what you might consider to be a balance increase in funds of some kind or passive regeneration of any kind. Because, of course, if you disable the starting fleets, nobody else has the advantage to compensate for that additional bonus you have. Now, another thing I like to do on my settings is to turn the remnant occurrence up to 100%. Now, remnants are NPC fleets that will attack every player and NPCs. They exist in the systems. By default, I think it was 30%. I turned up to 100. That means every system will have at least one. Their spawn rate, I believe, is between 1 to 5. I don't have the exact numbers, but I believe I've seen up to 5 in one system with it set at 100%. So you don't want to set it too much higher because then you'll get too many fleets out there and you'll have to really take up before you can actually advance into other systems. But the 100% guarantees there's going to be something to kill, and they always have something valuable to drop. And that is, of course, going to be a distinct advantage to helping curb overly expansive and easily expanding, rather, empires early on to those who have to actually balance out between their military strength to conquer these systems and those who have the ability to expand just rapidly. So we'll go ahead and start the game here, and we'll go over quickly what advantages we have. Go ahead and pause it here. Alright, so your starting planet always starts out with 1 food and 1 water. You can see it down here. Go into the menu, and you'll see it here as well. Now, of course, you always start with a factory as well, or stock equivalent, on the options you selected. What I prefer to do is to go ahead and produce a water generator and a food farm of some kind. Obviously one kind, since there's only one of each. On the home planet, so we'll go ahead and start that back up and actually speed it up here. And I'll go ahead and start a second one, because you're going to need 2 food and 1 water to get to level 2. Now what this does is it frees up the 1 water and 1 food by default on the planet to go to any other planet we want. So let's look at our Tech 1 here. It gave us natural gas, which is an energy generating resource. What we'll want is to import that to our home planet so we can hit Tech level 2, because we do require that level 1 resource. Or level 2 planet, rather, and then Tech level 1 resource. So, what we'll need to do is basically just wait for these to finish. Go ahead and change our welfare over to research grants. Strongly recommend that. That means any extra money at the end of your cycle goes into points towards research. It's not a 1-for-1 trade, but it does help to balance out your research deficit, basically. So we'll go ahead and speed it up a little bit more. See if we can get these to finish in time. Alright, now we'll slow it back down. So, now we've got our 2 food and 1 water that we cannot export. So we will go ahead and tell it to colonize this planet. And then once that's done, we'll tell it to go ahead and queue the exports. You can queue those up so you don't have to wait for it to finish. Take a look at our asteroids here. Alright, so we have our ore asteroid. So we'll go ahead and produce a miner and a scout. FTL shards is probably the worst asteroid you can get, honestly, unless you're really FTL dependent. It's just not that useful. It's only 9 minutes long. It gives you 0.5 FTL per second. This one here, however, we've got an option for construction materials, which increases the labor generation, which is really great. And morphic materials, which is one of my favorites to find because that adds 2 pressure to the native resource. So we throw that on this gas planet here, natural gas planet, and instead of just being up to 3 pressure for energy, it'll be up to 5 pressure. And that will also be exportable. So if we export it over to our home world here, that will export all that extra pressure. And it will even, if I recall, it'll even force some to be produced on the actual planet itself. So we've got this queued up for us to get the morphic material built. I believe we do. Let's double check. Yeah. Okay. Alright, so our mining ship here, we're going to go to our ore asteroid, right click and tell it to automatically mine. That will continuously mine all of that in there until it is just completely depleted, which is going to be quite a while. I've actually gone a 4-hour game session and not seen a 5K ore asteroid depleted. Go ahead and close all that. Now the scout, we'll go ahead and just tell him to auto-explore. Scouts are usually good on their own. You don't need to watch them, really. We'll zoom out, take a look at our position here. Just to get an idea where we are in the world, basically. Alright, so you see we've become a Tech 2 resource, or Tech 2 planet. Tier 2 planet, rather. Now to get to Tier 3, we need another food, we need another Tech 1, and then a Tech 2. That is going to take a little bit of time, so what we go ahead and do is we will queue up by right-clicking on the star, tell it to colonize the planets. It'll queue up the colonization of both of those planets. And what that means is we'll take over those two. They'll both be at minus 80k income because they're useless, basically, until we upgrade them. Now, upgrading by producing the buildings on it to get it to level 1 generally does not give you enough extra income to offset the cost of the building. So you want to aim for level 2 or higher. Now this one here, we definitely want to get as self-reliant. So let's see, we could probably build that one there. And we don't have enough coming in next budget yet. But basically, once that hydro generator is done, we can cancel the water import. And then we'll build a mega farm and cancel the food import, so it'll be self-reliant. And a quick note there, if we didn't export that natural gas, that tier 1 resource, and we had the food and water here, of course, for it, and we need 2 food and 1 water in that case, this would become a level 2 planet as well. Now, basically at this point we're just waiting it out, so we'll speed it up again. Let's take a look at these 2 planets real quick. You want to get a good look at the surface. This one's got a good surface here, so that's the one we're going to focus on first. Go ahead and export the water there. You can export your natural resources of food and water without being a tier. And we'll go ahead and tell it to build here. So the export just lets it build up faster, basically. We'll go ahead and tell them to build up another farm here. As you see, it's built those power plants, even though it's exporting, because of the morphic asteroid that is being imported. So you get a nice bonus there. And if we build over it, it'll relocate to another square that is established. So once those 2 finish, we can actually stop importing everything. And in fact, we'll go ahead and stop exporting the water. Go take a look over here. See if we can tell you to build a farm. And we'll send that water export here so we can cancel it on this end. Once that farm is done, this will become a level 1. This one already is a level 1 because that food has been produced. Actually, we don't need to export water here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and build a farm there. Well, once we have income. Alright, good. We've got some research coming in now. So, let's go ahead and get our budget increased. Get some special funds. And we will hold off on the rest for right now. Slow it down a bit. Alright, so let's take a look in here. Alright, that one is done there. Go ahead and throw that. Now the idea is that you want to make them completely self-reliant, up to at least Tech 1, ideally Tech 2. And that's actually what we're going to end up aiming for here, is these are going to become Tech 2 planets that are completely self-reliant. Alright, Stop exporting. Should be able to stop exporting all of that, rather. There we go. Yeah, okay. So, what we have here is we're going to go ahead and tell it to come in here and terraform. You select a planet that has production, labor basically, and then you'll select from the list which Tech 1 resource you want it to have. Now, I strongly suggest textiles because that generates extra income, and that's going to make a huge difference for you right there. So we've got that queued up. You go back to the planet you selected it on, you'll see it's queued up. It's going to be 7 minutes and 20 seconds. So we're going to speed that up. Now, this is pretty much what you're going to want to do with all of your planets, is you're going to want to turn all your food planets into Tech 1 planets that are producing income, ideally, because that's going to keep your budget in the positive. It's going to make all the difference for you. And it really just helps keep your empire self-sufficient. Alright, so that is finished. We'll slow it down again. See, it's now a Tech 1. We need a second food farm for it. So we'll go ahead and toss that up there. And then we'll come back over to this planet here. He's also going to need a second food farm to finish what they will need to be a Tech 1, or Tech 2 rather. Fortunately, we don't have enough shared income for it. So let's go to our research tree. And we will go ahead and research the next budget increase. Alright, so at this point we're basically just waiting on things to finish. So I'll speed it up again. And we'll see if we can go ahead and queue up a terraform for textiles here. And textiles is not the only resource, even at tier 1, that will provide you with income. But it is the one I know of offhand that you can terraform to. I believe electronics can as well, but I don't know if you can terraform to it. Let me check real quick. No, you cannot. Okay, so you don't have the full Tech 1 options for all terraforming as yet, basically. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and queue up that second farm. You see that morphic asteroid was the base was constructed there, basically. Right. So now, let's say we've got our home system all set up as we have now. So this will be pretty much good to go once that farm completes. We don't have anything else exporting there. What you can do is I like to pick a second planet, basically. Go into the interface for it, build a factory on it, because you actually have no reason to keep your home planet. So we will go ahead and start that, and while we're doing that, we're going to go into our designs. Now this I strongly recommend is select your carrier and increase its size up to 200. That alone is going to make a huge difference in your fleets. Now we're also going to expand upon the armor plating and make it a bit more survivable. Now there's some different options, of course, you can pick from for it. The plate armor just gives a health bonus. It'll increase your health level. And you want to make sure that you do not block in your thrusters or any weapons, of course. So you obviously want to take a look at where your weapons are facing, place a bit, and then see if it affects the facing, which that definitely does. You see how that it decreases the range on that laser cannon? So we definitely don't want to put anything right there. So we put one over here, and that does not affect it at all. So we're going to go ahead and just stick with this on either end. Now there's no weapons up here, except for the missile launchers that are further forward. So we will fill this out with our heavy plating, or just plating rather. Get a nice symmetrical design there. Now the ablative armor is very good to have as well. It increases your damage resistance. I like to put it as an external layer. And what's interesting, once you research the fluid armor, or liquid armor rather, it is the exact same stats as the plate armor, just it's able to fill the gaps in other armor. So it's a good idea to have that as your internal layer. Now you see we did the one space there. Missile launchers don't have a firing arc. They can shoot anywhere, but they do need one egress point to actually fire. So we will go ahead and add this pretty much all around to touch up these areas. Then lastly, I like to put a bit of reactive armor on the front, since that's where you're likely going to get hit first. That reactive armor is really going to make a difference up there. You see how I would give us that warning turret must point outwards. This is apparently blocking the direct line of fire of the turret, so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. Now you'll notice at the top, I'll show you in just a second up here, the initial cost for production and then the cost for upkeep. That definitely goes up as you add and decrease armor plating, as well as the amount of labor used to produce it. 200 is a good size for this carrier design, and once you've added this armor, it increases that total health fairly well, so we'll go ahead and save that. And then we'll go into the home planet here. And what I like to do, even see we can't afford it right now because it's almost 1 mil just to produce it, is to go ahead and click on our shipyard, select the heavy carrier, and it'll max out what you can afford right now by default. So what that does is that creates a shipyard here that any planet in your system can actually build to. So we have our other planet here we were building a labor option on, which is complete, a factory rather. We'll tell it to work on dry dock, and that way both those planets will be working on the same dry dock, and you can see it says 1% out of the 37% we've purchased. That will increase as they produce on it. So this will allow multiple factory planets to work on the same ship, so your more expensive ships can be built faster. And in addition, if you have a really expensive ship you just will not have the budget for, you can produce it this way and just add on to it cycle by cycle. So we'll go ahead and add a little bit more. And we'll add a little bit more because we got another cycle. And next cycle should actually give us the amount we need to finish producing it. But that's alright, because we're actually going to hold off on that. What we're going to do is take our other production planet, right click on our home planet, tell it to terraform, and we're going to select textiles again. That's going to turn that from a food planet into a textile planet. So that is where our extra food production comes in. We're going to make sure we've actually got enough here, because you need one food for every level. So this will give us the Tech 1 we need for the next level when we're importing that. Or we can cancel the import, and we'll have 4 Tech 3s, or level 3 planets, which is actually what I prefer to do personally. Now, we do need to go in and take a look at this. We'll rearrange the production queue so that terraforming is going to take priority. And of course, we'll go into our research here. Alrighty. Take that. Now, defense is what's going to give you those automatically produced support ships, and those will get added to your fleet. Now, Patriotic Surge is the card you can play to get instant support ships, and that's a really good card to have, basically, especially if you want to build ships early on. You want to look at, as we've discussed previously, the alternate unlock options. It'll tell you if it has any negative side effects, such as here. If we use the energy to unlock that, we basically get nothing from this. If we use 200 research, we'll get energy from it. So of course we'll use the 200 research. And here, if we use energy, there's no negative effects to it. So we can use either 1200 research to get it, or 1500 energy to unlock the weapon range plus 20%. Alright, now back we go. So we're going to go ahead and stop exporting the natural gas here. And that's going to leave it all on this planet. So what we have here is this is going to produce markets which give us extra money. It is completely self-sustaining. We need one more Tech 1 and one Tech 2 resource to get it to Tech 3. Now again, there is no reason you actually should use your home planet other than just because you had it. And it generally has the largest building space that is not just completely screwed up by volcanoes and whatnot. So it's a good idea to use your home planet, but you have no requirement to use it. So we'll finish the production on our dry dock there. Now enhanced cards are great. They automatically take the card you target and they make it a 3-star, which is the maximum it can be right now. Once we get the 1000 there, we'll actually go ahead and get the +3 defense per minute. Now, once that is done, we'll be able to continuously produce ships. Now, you have several options for how you use your defense. You can use it on multiple systems and planets. You can select a planet, right-click on it, start using defense, and of course, stop using defense. And that means that will be the target of where your defensive ships are produced. If you don't have anything selected, you will not produce ships. It's just a wasted resource. If you right-click on the star, you have the same options. And that's what we're going to do here. So all 4 of these planets will go ahead and build up a fleet slowly with that. Now, that fleet is actually going to get sucked away, as you can see, by the present capital ship, the flagship as the game calls it. It has a total of 1006 support capacity, and not every ship counts as one. Most of them count as more than one. So of course you're going to see that number deplete as extra ships are made. And of course, you can always turn that off by turning autofill off on the fleet, and it will stop pulling from the defensive forces in the system. Auto buy will, of course, buy the ships for you. We're actually going to have it buy a number of missile boats for us. So you're going to see from those 2 factory planets, they're going to produce the required ships. So we'll get all those missile boats. And once that's done, that's going to give us a good, strong fleet we can send out to attack. Now, since I've been using, since we have a mod we're working on, I actually haven't played with the default tech tree in a while, so let me take a quick look here. See if I can figure out where our influence options are. Way over there. Okay, so we've got to go ahead and research in this direction, which is fine. We can do that. Basically, we're going to use this to get our influence increases without having to have extra buildings or certain planet types to produce it. Influence is what allows you to play your cards, and some of the best cards you'll find are Name Planet, Name Flagship, and Name System. Patriarch Surge, it's one that gives you 25 labor worth of support ships instantly to the planet you pick. Really great to have that. So let's take a look at our fleet. Fleet is fairly close to being finished here. We will actually go ahead and order the remaining ships. That should fill us all the way up once they're done. Now the reason I pick missile boats over other ones is just purely range. The range advantage is great. So if you have a heavily armored slow ship with long range, you're pretty much unstoppable. If you have a number of fast ships that are long range, you'll do fairly good against heavily armored ships, rather. And of course, you need fast ships with heavy armor if they have short range weapons. And ideally, a combination of heavy armor, speed, and range is really what's going to get you. So, let's take a look at our other systems, get an idea of what's where. Now this right here, that's a permanent fleet. There's another one. That is interesting. Didn't think we'd get one of these. The ancient shipyard is definitely something you want to capitalize on as soon as you can. Now you'll notice the stats on the ship there. It has a 17k fleet strength and a 26.2k capital ship strength. Basically every ship in that little fleet is the same as the capital ship. Now, those shipyards, they will give you 3 ships to produce that you cannot produce any other way. System closed the game out on me. Alright, so those pretty much the 3 best non-Titan ships you can get without having teched everything out will be produced from those shipyards. So, I've had situations where I've sent 3 to 4 fleets one at a time after those, and they've been decimated. So we're actually gonna go ahead and try for it, and we're gonna go ahead and build these up first. And then we'll take a look at our research here. I'm sure we can get a few bonuses that will make a heck of a lot of difference for us in this fight. And damage resistance value should be a fairly good bonus. And of course weapon range. Alright, so let's take our little suicide fleet, and we're going to tell them to come up here and stop outside of the system. You can stop anywhere in deep space. So they're going to come up here, and this is going to be a fairly quick fight because it's on a high speed. And get an idea. There we go. You see how quickly it's just ripping through our fleet. Luckily, though our capital ship is dead, the support fleet has the range to engage still. So when they default it back, which is hopefully something they'll fix later on, where the AI doesn't default their fleet back once the capital ship's been dead. Now, you saw those just blew up because the lack of support. They've lost all their resources. The starter ships, the support ships rather, they have no resources of their own. So you do have to have a capital ship for that. So we'll go ahead and we'll produce another one. And we'll actually build a second fleet to go along with him. So you saw how quickly that just chewed through our fleet. And that was not a weak fleet at all. We beefed that up fairly well. That fleet would be fairly formidable even in late game. Now, of course, as you have more tech options unlocked, things will become a lot more intricate and easier to use. Or not easier to use, but intricate and easier to specify as to which role you want them to fight in. So we'll go ahead and research that there. And that one there. Once we get the energy, we'll go ahead and unlock our weapon range as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to build up those 2 fleets, and we're going to see if we can take out the remainder of that permanent fleet. There we go. You can see our planets are filling up fairly well. Wrong option. There we go. the most part, they should be roughly halfway done with their capacity. So when one of those ships is actually completed, we will be able to go ahead and fill it up right away. So this should be the other one. Yeah, that should work out. Now we've got both of those dry docks queued up. See, I pretty much filled up the fleet right then and there. So our second fleet's not going to be full once it's done, but it is going to be fairly close to it. Now, the number of cards that are on display and the size of the cycle does change based on the number of empires you have. This is actually very small. Usually we have 2 rows full of it, since we play with, I think, about 8 by default. So it makes it fairly interesting on how you can actually play through the card system there. Clearly it's not been 3 hours, but according to the game time, with the 10 times modifier, that's how long the game has been going per se. Also, interesting side note, since we're talking about it, you can click on your time here, it'll tell you your local time. And then back to the original. Or game time, rather. Now we could go to another system and actually easily take over another area here. As you see, both of these actually have textiles on them, which is income. And that's actually a good idea while we're waiting on it. Let's go ahead and send down this fleet. We'll clear everything out down there, and we'll go ahead and take over that system. Now these are quite interesting. Apparently they give 1 pressure for pretty much everything here. That's actually the first time I've encountered a gem planet. So definitely going to go into that direction. The espionage probe is great for your player-on-player, but we don't really see much advantage for it against NPCs as yet. It does just as the name implies. It suggests, or basically sends a probe out that will spy on the enemy. So we killed that fleet. We'll go ahead and tell them to pick up the tokens, which should basically translate into cards, I believe, luxury tokens. And then we will right-click on one of the stars here and tell it to colonize all these planets. Floating continent for 800. We'll go ahead and do that. We'll save that now. Alright, so floating continent, actually, yeah, I'll show you how that works. Okay, so we come back and we'll apply this floating continent to our home world. That gave us this area here, and it is all produced and ready to build on. Now, you can also get moon bases, which should show up over here. And basically it just gives you extra building territory. Now, if you build a tractor ship, you can tractor asteroids, you can tractor devices, you can even tractor proto-planets around. We'll go ahead and send them down this way, clear out these 3 fleets. Shouldn't be anything as bad as the ones to the other direction, since these are just basic remnant fleets. They're fairly formidable. Grouped up, they can be quite deadly, but they're not going to be those supercharged ships that we saw in the other fleet. Now, facing does matter, so when they flanked in there, they got on our weak side for most of the default ship designs, and that can cause some serious problems for us. colonize there. So you can come back up here. We take a look at this. Yeah, those fleets are going to be fairly close to finished. All right, so now we've got food and water planet, which is going to be fairly useless. So we'll go ahead and export these to one of these textile planets. And then we'll take a look at the other one. Volcanic tiles are pretty much the worst you can get for a planet. There's not much you can do with them. Go ahead and start producing our required items, food and water, of course. We'll need one more food for the next tech level up. So it'll hit level 1, it'll give itself the textiles, and then it'll hit level 2. Alright, this one's going to be level 1 here. So we'll tell him to go ahead and start building the farm. That'll get him up to level 2. And that will give us enough income in that system to justify the cost of it, basically. Tell that asteroid that we captured from the enemy, the remnant fleet, to export to our home planet. It's going to add 2 defense and 2 research pressure. So that's going to help make a big difference. See, we've got to 5 a minute on our defense production. Alright, so let's take our 2 fleets and see if we can finish off the rest of that. This is also where our first Tech 2 planet's going to come from. Alright, so you see we've wiped out the remainder of that fleet while we were managing our planets. So we'll clear out this system here. Now the command computer increases the fleet size of that fleet that it attaches to. Now the good thing is if your ship gets blown up, it'll drop the command computer. Bad thing is anybody can use it. So basically you'll have to fight whoever killed you to get it back. Go ahead and add it on to one of our fleets. And we'll tell them to come over here and pick up the ancient shipyard. And we'll just go ahead and actually, we will split them up since we don't need both fleets in the same area. So they should manage fine. Alright, so we'll pick one of these. Go ahead and finance it up. We'll need another cycle before we can finance it further. And we'll go back down here to our home system. Tell him to send production up there. There'll be another cycle before that's actually finished. Now, ideally in this situation, you want to tractor that thing right back to your core worlds and keep it under guard. It's going to take quite a bit to produce them. Those 3 ships I was telling you about. And once you have them, of course, you need to develop a fleet to go with them. Actually, I do stand corrected. You only need to finance them because they start with 100% built. You just need to pay for the remainder. So we'll go ahead and bring them back down. Or the one that we built. So you see it has a 13k strength just with itself, 26.2k HP, and of course adding the support ships definitely increases the strength there. Obviously, we paid a bit more meticulous detail to everything. We'd be doing a lot better than we are now, but we're still doing very good with it. And just trying to give you guys a general idea of a good goal to go with to get you into the game and actually able to stand on your own for a while. Now over here on our right hand side, we're going to run into left click on this dotted line here and tell it to show our military flagships. That's going to show you your different fleets and their fleet strength. So these guys are finished up here. We'll go ahead and pick up the tokens. And then we will send them on to the next star. We'll go ahead and take these guys here, tell them to pick up that ancient knowledge, and send them into the next star. There's a comet, which adds water to a planet. It's a very nice thing to have there. I'm hoping we can find one with a debris field. Yep, there it is. Okay, so we'll go ahead and activate that. Always good to get these things activated. Once you've activated it, it is yours. And I don't know of a way for anybody to take it from you. Tried to trade it to a buddy I was allied with, and of course we didn't have any options for it. Couldn't use cards to claim it either. Alright, so they scan the debris field here. You're going to get a series of options from it. It's going to tell you it's been scanned. So in this case, you could destroy this object, or you can research it. We're going to be foolish and research it. Yeah, nice. Pirate vessel's going to attack our space. I do not know if those are scripted to be permanent, or if those are just random chance as to what the effect when you go to scan it is going to be. Not necessarily, I know it is going to be random in the in what it finds, basically, but I don't know if picking that option to research it is always going to trigger a pirate, or if it's going to give you something else on some occasions. The game has not made that clear to me at this point. Of course, it's mostly because we don't have enough of a large enough sample size to be certain of which. That was actually the first time I'd encountered that exact one. I believe we saw another system around here that also had one. Ah, yes, there it is. So let's scan this one and see what we get here. Now this one I've had before, and this is an interesting choice. Basically, you get the most advanced armor you can by scanning this, or you can get a permanent 15% increase to your HP altogether for all your ships that you ever build. Personally, I would definitely recommend the HP because that's an added bonus. Once you get to the end game and you have everything researched, you can research the Eternium armor by default. But that 15% HP, nobody else will be able to research that. That is something that you will get. Alright, that pretty much covers our second look here at the game and basic tips on how to get everything set up. I hope that was helpful and not too rambling for you at this point. Now, obviously, it is quite late for me here, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. So, as always, thank you for your time and have a good day.